Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Long Way Around podcast. I'm Tony Jackson.
And I'm Kevin Sullivan.
There you go. There we go. Welcome back. It's episode 5. I have no idea how we made it this far. In fact, I almost forgot we were doing this today. That's how I can't believe we made it this far. So, by the way, if you've been watching all the episodes, thank you for all of your support. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel, Long Way Around Podcast on YouTube, TLWA Podcast on Instagram and Facebook, right? Facebook,
yeah,
right?
yep.
And Facebook, yeah, and Facebook. Make sure to like us on there, like us in person too, because we're pretty cool people. And you know, and subscribe to our channel so that way when we post more stuff, you can watch it and see what we have to say about things. Today, I've been waiting for this day for a long time now. Actually, that's a lie. I've only been waiting for like 2 months because we've only been doing this for 2 months. But I've been waiting for this day for a long time. It is the Caregiver Chronicles. I feel like this could be like a part 1 and part 2 video series that we could do at some point because there's so much to talk about.
I feel like this could be an ongoing subject that we just revisit at certain points.
Okay, and that's a good idea. Maybe we'll do that. We'll put that down in the notes for later. This is the Caregiver Chronicles Volume 1.
Volume 1. I like
Volume 1. So
this is like when The Simpsons had those Treehouse of Horror episodes.
This
is our Treehouse of Horror.
This is our Treehouse of Horrors with some of the people that I've worked with over the years. This is definitely our Treehouse of Horrors. Not season 33 because we're not there yet, or 35 or wherever they're at now. This is our Treehouse of Horrors, the Caregiver Chronicles Volume 1. And so let's talk about that today, shall we? If you've been watching these episodes so far, you know that Kevin and I have a lot of similarities, although there are some differences. Now, similarly, I'm basically Kevin 15 years in the future. All right. Differently though, like Kevin can actually get out of his chair and walk. I'm not going to ask you to do that right now. I don't want you to do that right now. I don't want you to fall over in the middle of this
podcast. That.
Yeah. But you can actually get up and you can walk around and you can do some things on your own. Right.
Yes, I can.
Yeah. I heard you came in 47th place at the Boston Marathon for you. No, I'm just kidding.
That'd be cool.
Hey, 50th is top 50 still. So you can get up, you can walk around, you can do some things with your hand, like you type with your hands, right? I don't even really know what that's like. I cannot do that. I use a wheelchair. If you look very closely, there it is. So I can't walk. Not really. I can't walk at all. I can't really use my hands to do very much. They just look nice. Right? You can't even see it. They look nice though, trust me. So you have a lot more functionality than I do. However, another similarity that we have is that we both need caregivers to do some things, right?
Indeed.
Right. So you need caregivers to do some things. I need caregivers to do more some things. Like, okay, question for you, because I don't actually know. Do you feed yourself?
So that's yes and no. I do have a device known as the OB robot, which I can use to feed myself, but it can only handle foods that can be fed via a spoon. So I will say it is good for a lot of things. It is not good for everything. So yes and no. I would say it's like 50-50.
What's it not good for though? Because you can eat just about anything with a spoon.
Yeah, but like a sandwich, for instance, that's kind of tough to eat with a spoon.
Okay, fair.
Or like spaghetti, things like that.
You chop up the spaghetti into fine particles.
Yeah,
you could do it
that's the way to do it. Is making it like right-sized pieces, basically.
Right, and when you're above the age of like 13, you don't want to do that anymore, right? So
yeah,
you want
exactly.
to eat like an adult. You want to eat like a grown-ass adult. So I get that. You
might as well just get a can of SpaghettiOs at that point.
Right. And no, thank you.
Yeah.
I can't really do that. So confession, there are things that I can eat by myself. However, I don't want to look like I'm a dog eating out of a dish.
Well, I can also do that too. I guess I didn't mention that. Yeah.
Yes, I don't want to look like a dog, or one thing you could do is strap a feed bag to my face like a horse, and I can just eat my oats out of a leather bag. I can do that, sure. However, I want to live like a dignified human being and not do that. So there are things I can't eat by myself, like sandwiches, right?
Hey, there's $1 million idea right there. It's the first person who can make a feed bag for a person that doesn't look ridiculous. That's an idea right there.
That's an idea. It's got to look dignified. I
It's
don't
got
know
to
how.
look dignified.
It's probably going to look like some BDSM contraption to make it look dignified.
Oh God.
If you can figure it out without making it look like a sex toy, then I am all for it.
The long way around feedback. I can see it now.
It's going to be the really long way around. Oh my goodness. Okay, don't, you know what? Actually, it's a bad idea. Don't come up with that idea, please. Just let us eat
Yes.
dignified with utensils. So we need caregivers to do all of these things, right? Like toileting. Let's talk about toileting for a second. I won't get super graphic about it because I'd like to keep some fans. But toileting, right? Like I need help with toileting. You need help with toileting, right? So caregivers are our lifeline, right? Caregivers are our lifeline. They help us do the basic things every day so we can do the non-basic things every day, like record this podcast, watch it on YouTube. So there are a lot of things that go into it when we're born and we're children. Our families are our caregivers. Now, Kevin, you have brothers and sisters.
I do.
Siblings.
Yep. I'm the youngest of three, so I have an older brother and an older sister.
Okay, so you are the youngest of three.
Yeah.
I am the oldest of 3.5. And so your family is your first caregiver. Your mom, your dad. If you're younger than your siblings at some point as well, I'm sure. And with that, there's an interesting thing, right? Because you go from being a baby to a sentient being with thoughts and ideas, right? And like when you're a baby, you don't care. Like you just need your diaper changed, you need to eat, you need to sleep, those things. But as you grow, you start having ideas, you start having your own thoughts, and yet your parents or your siblings are still helping you, right? And there's a certain level of inherent trust with that, right? Right. Talk about that for a second, Kevin. Like, for you growing up, we probably had similar experiences with siblings and parents helping us.
Yeah, I would say so. So in my case, I would say it was mostly my parents doing a lot of the caregiving. My brother and sister, they would help out as needed. If like my parents, had to run to the store or something, or they went out for a little bit, they would definitely babysit me because there was a bit of an age difference between me and them. We also had a respite caregiver who would come in once every other Saturday. So she kind of started as a babysitter and then eventually kind of morphed into that respite caregiver. But I would say it was mostly my parents doing pretty much everything from, bathing to getting me dressed to preparing my meals to doing my laundry. Pretty much all of that until I turned 18 and went to college.
Yeah, it was about the same for me too. Like, so if you've watched previous episodes, especially the travel episode, I think I mentioned that my dad's in the military. And so with that, he was gone for extended periods of time. So that left my mom and my younger brother, who's only a year and a half younger than me, to help me for the most part. My sister is 8 years younger, and so she didn't really do a lot other than like poop herself for my first few formative years. She doesn't do that anymore. She's a grown woman now. So, but she didn't really do a lot until she got a little bit older. She'd like ham fist me a sandwich into the face when she was like 5, or whatever she could do. But it was mostly my mom and my younger brother who would help me a lot, and my dad, when he was around, of course, would do stuff too, certainly. And so you mentioned something very interesting. There's that transition, right? Because both you and I left home and went to college, but up until that point, our parents and our families were the ones who were taking care of us. And so there becomes that moment where now you leave the house. Now, I believe you said you lived off campus, right? You lived off campus for a while.
No, I lived on campus.
No, that's what I meant. That's what I meant. You lived on campus, and that's what I meant. But
Yeah.
you moved away from home. You lived on campus, and so did I. And at that moment, your parents weren't taking care of you anymore, right? And so you had to find somebody to do all of these things that had been done for the first 17, 18 years of your life. And that's scary. It was scary. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, it was,
Yeah, it
right?
was scary. It was definitely scary because, like, you don't realize it. You go from, oh, these are my parents, they're going to help me no matter what, to people who you hire who are very good usually and very caring and all that. But at the same time, it's their job. So I do feel like that dynamic changes a little bit.
It changes a lot, actually, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. What I want to talk about first is how you found your first caregiver. I'll go over mine in a minute, but I want to give this to you first, especially since you came along a little bit later than me. Yeah, how did you find him?
When I first started at Illinois State, I used their job board in order to, uh, you know, hey Tony, sorry, can we cut the feed here for a second? I just realized my wheelchair is still plugged in and it's beeping. Can you hear it?
No,
Really?
no,
Oh shit! It's like beeping in the background.
I can't even hear it.
Oh
I heard it
crap.
once. No, it's okay.
Um.
Just keep
Well,
going. I'll edit this out later. Just keep going.
okay. Sorry.
Unless it's really bothering you that much.
Hold on. You just cut out there. What was
Is
that?
it, is it really, if it's bothering you that much, then go cut it off. It's okay.
Okay, I'm just gonna go shut it off.
Oh, that's
Sorry.
fine. That's fine.
My
That's fine.
bad. I forgot to unplug it before we
That's fine.
started.
Whatever. Oh, that's
My
okay.
bad.
That's okay.
I'll be right back.
I'm not going anywhere. Look at him walking. Look at him walking. You see that?
This is why you leave it in.
He doesn't need a caregiver for that. And he opened the door himself too. Look at that. Dude is such a cheater. And I thought about cutting this out. I'm leaving this in here. I'm leaving this in. So that way he can brag about how he can walk and open doors himself. Look at that. I'm gonna hang out for a second while the cheater turns off his wheelchair. You're still cool with me though, Kevin. You're all right with me. It's all right.
Might be. I'm back.
Look at him closing the door himself too. Look at that. Jeez. You don't know how good you got it, kids today. Look at this. Getting in your comfortable chair. All right, talk about your first caregiver. Here we go.
All right, there we go. We're back. First caregiver. So when I first got to college, I used the school's jobs board in order to find my caregivers, and luckily that was pretty successful for me, honestly. The summer going into freshman and sophomore year, I would say I had at least like 40 to 50 applicants each summer, which was really surprising. And I think that was in large part due to the school I went to producing a lot of nursing students and special education majors. I think that was a big reason behind it. But luckily that worked out. And then from there, I just found people through the grapevine.
Man, all right. So you were hustling and networking from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much had to. That was when I first went down for orientation. I met with the accommodations office, and they were like, okay, yeah, we'll help with this in terms of your academic accommodations. We'll get you a shower chair. We'll do all this stuff to your dorm room. But when it comes to your personal caregivers, that was on me entirely. The school didn't really help at all with that, except for letting me post on the job board.
Man,
But other than that, it was all me having to find people, and it was easier, in my opinion, to hire other students because that way they had the same like schedule flexibility, and they were also near campus, which was a decent sized campus, but definitely not a huge campus. I'm sure Arizona State was probably larger if I
it's
had to guess.
massive. It's massive.
Yeah.
Wow. So I went to Arizona State in the 90s. And back then, they had the Disability Resource Center and all those things. I'm still like blown away that they gave you a shower chair. What? Dude,
Well, they didn't like, give it to me, but they put one in the bathroom.
I mean, the fact that they had one to give you is blowing my mind right now. Now, to their credit, they did have wheelchair accessible rooms. Now, the room did not have an automatic door opener on it. And so oh man, that's another story for another day. Anyway, I had a door opener to get into the building, right? They had an automatic door opener on the building, but no automatic door opener on my room. It did have a roll-in shower, no shower chair though. Come on, ASU, what's wrong with you guys? And so my first caregiver,
how did you shower?
I don't even remember. I probably blocked it out because I had a guy as my first caregiver. Like outside of my dad and my brother, like I never had a dude see me naked in my life. I think. Wait, no, that's a lie. That's a lie. Summer camp. I lied. Summer camp.
See, that's a big difference. All of mine were female for the most part.
Good for you.
College was fun.
And so yeah, so we went through an agency, a local caregiver agency here in town, who hired a caregiver for me. He was here 7 days a week, morning and night. He would get me up in the morning, not night, late afternoon, early evening. And so so he would come in, he would get me up in the morning, help me get cleaned up and do all these things. And as I believe I mentioned in a previous video, this is before I had a lift, a Hoyer lift or a patient lift. And so he would just pick me up. And I wasn't a small dude. I'm still not super tiny, but I was much less tiny back then. And it would pick me up and transfer me to the chair, transfer me to the toilet, transfer me to the bed. And so he was my caregiver for like the first, oh my goodness, we were together for like, I feel like 6 or 5, no, let me think. Oh God, I can't. 4 years maybe.
Wow.
Yeah, 3-4 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's wild to me.
Yeah. And so it was an interesting dynamic, and we'll get more into that later about like personalities and all that stuff. So that was interesting, right? And so I've almost always done it that way, where I go through an agency and not gone out and found people myself. I had to do that when I was living in New Hampshire, and I can talk about that a little bit more later on. However, it was a change, like you said, going from somebody who's intimately familiar with you in your parents and your siblings to going to somebody who had never met you in their lives, right? I had to go through that same transition, and it's a challenge, because when you're 17, 18 years old, you can't describe how you need things done necessarily or accurately all the time, because they just did it, and you just did it, and it just worked, right? And now you're thrust into this situation where you have to explain how to do everything, because this person has never met you. They don't know anything about you. And
it's a really vulnerable place to be in. Like, you go from, okay, here's this person, they're around my age, they could have been my equal in high school as recently as like the last year, and now they're seeing me, naked, they're wiping my butt, they're doing all these things. And it's just very, odd at first to get used to when you go from family to hired caregivers.
It does. It forces you to get rid of any self perception, right? Because like if you can't get over yourself, you are not getting any help, right? Like, I mean, like, yeah, like you said, toileting, like somebody's got to help me like clean up after I go to the bathroom, right? Showering, somebody's got to like wash me, right? And so it's a challenge, because you're not used to it, and for the most part, these other folks probably aren't used to it either. And so it's interesting, and credit to everybody who does this type of work. I'm gonna stop for a second. Credit to anybody who does this, and really extra credit for anybody who does this well and enjoys what they do, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not about the actual care itself. It's about allowing people to live their lives and being the catalyst for them to do that, right? So credit to all you. I can't clap because my hands don't work. Just imagine I'm clapping right now. Thank you, caregivers.
Same here. Right. I can't clap either, but I'm also clapping.
You can slap the desk at least, right?
I can slap the desk. There we go.
Yeah, there you go. There's your applause. And so it's a challenging thing, because you're now going from somebody who has taken care of you your entire life, your first 18 years of life, to now somebody who's never met you. And so there are not only the challenges of conveying what it is that you need in a way that they can understand, but there's also that level of expectations and standards, right? That you need. And what I didn't understand when I was a kid is like they were doing the best they could with what they had, but I as I got older, I realized like I wanted it done this way. Right?
Right.
Right. I wanted it done
Right.
this way. And so with somebody who's a caregiver and not your family member, you can, as long as you do it tactfully, you can be more specific with them, right? And a little bit more nuanced with them. Like, I need it this way. I need it that way. I need it this way. I need it that way. Right. Whereas, like, I guess my family was like, isn't that good enough? Isn't that good enough? I got you what you needed. Am I not good enough for you? And and so you settle sometimes. And maybe that's just my experience. I don't know.
No. I mean, that was my experience too, for sure. It's easier to direct someone when they're being paid, in
Yes.
my opinion.
Yes.
And that's just a fact of life. It's nothing against my family caregivers. It's easier to direct someone and give them more nuance on what to do when they're getting compensated for it. And like my parents did get paid for it in a way at certain points because they were my caregivers through the state and all that, slash still kind of are. But it's a lot harder to tell your parents that they're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Right, because they're your parents.
Right.
Right. So I would agree with that for sure.
And so now, as you know, that you don't live at home anymore, I don't live at home anymore. Like I've come to discover that my parents and my family are good caregivers for me. If anybody else were in there, they'd be awful at it. They would be terrible at it, right? Like
probably a fair statement.
Yeah, I mean,
probably a somewhat fair statement.
Right, but they're good for me because there's love, right, involved in it, like family love involved in it, right? Like I got some caregivers who are great, right? And then I look at them like, okay, my parents are good. They do what I need, right?
Well, the thing is, family can make up for it in other ways.
Yes,
right?
of course. And I'm not disparaging my family. I love my family, and again, they got me to this point in my life. So I just find it interesting that like when you go home and have your family take care of you, it's one level of care, and then when you're off on your own, it's a different level of care. Not necessarily better or worse, because I've had some really terrible caregivers over the years. It's just a different level of care, right? Like it's on a different plane. It's like parallel universes, right?
It's all about finding the right match,
right?
Personality wise. I mean, if you hire the correct caregivers, then like living on your own independently from your family can be pretty easy. But if you hire the wrong caregivers, it can be really difficult and a huge pain in the butt.
Yeah, it can be. It can be. And personalities are a huge part of it. Like, so the guy who was my first caregiver, like we got along, right? I wouldn't say we were best friends. At least I didn't think so. He probably tell you the same thing. Like we got along. We had our moments for sure. Where personalities clashed. And we made it work though. We made it work. I've had other caregivers who were great and they were awesome and I got along with them super well and we had a good time together. And I've had other caregivers that I would not care less if I never saw them again. Right? Never saw them again. Oh man. I hope they're happy human beings in life. I don't want to know though. I don't care.
Right. They do not exist.
They do. I mean, they exist, just not within my world anymore, thankfully.
Yeah, exactly.
I've had some great caregivers over the years. People who would like come over, they would make me dinner or whatever, and then bring some, make dinner at home and bring me some. Or like I had caregivers who were super sweet and would like buy me a new shirt here. And it's like, oh, I saw the shirt, I thought of you, buy it and whatever. And like just great people and just like super nice, just in general, right? And then I've had some caregivers where we got along fine. Right, the personalities weren't quite meshing together. However, we were both professional, and we made it work for 6 months, a year, or whatever. And then there are those that will remain with you forever because they were so either bad at what they did or just not good people. Right? Like let me. This is the Caregiver Chronicles. I'm going to give you one nightmare story that is more recent. I had just moved back to Arizona. I was staying at my friend's place while my apartment was getting not renovated, but they were cleaning it before I could move in. And so I went through this agency, and this caregiver showed up, and she was drunk, like wasted.
Like wasted.
Wasted,
Wow.
like, and I had to direct her on how to like hook up my sling to get me into the lift, and then help me with the bathroom.
Oh God.
I'm surprised that I made it through the evening. Like, she reeked of alcohol, but I couldn't. I don't. Let me not say I couldn't do anything. I didn't know what to do at that point, and so I just went through with it. It. Ugh. Ugh, I hope she got some help.
Wow.
I hope she got some professional help because she needed it. I would have caregivers who would show up a couple hours late, not answer the phone when I was calling them, say, "Hey, where are you?" I've been left in bed for hours and hours and hours on end, waiting to see if somebody was going to show up. Let's see. I had a caregiver talk about, oh my God, this woman a long time ago. I don't remember her name, and I don't care to remember her name. She wasn't a bad person. You could just tell that there were some cognitive differences. And I'm not talking like neurospicy autism or ADHD differences. I'm talking like there were some developmental delays, right? And
Okay.
I just remember one time she was talking about her doing the horizontal polka, and I wanted to curl up into myself and die in that moment. And I just like, I called the agency the next day. She smelled like old latex gloves too, which made it even worse. And I
Oh
called the agency
God.
the next day. I was like, y'all need to find somebody else. I've had people like steal stuff from me. Have you ever had anybody steal something from you?
Not that I am aware of. I will admit that I've had certain items, nothing of like high value, go missing, but that doesn't mean they were potentially stolen. It just means I misplaced them at some point. So nothing that I'm aware of, but I'm also really, I try to be very cognizant of that and like where I leave things and like making sure I like know, you know, where the valuable things are and all that. And making sure like I hide like sensitive information from my caregivers, things of that nature. But I feel like that's why. So I mostly hire my caregivers privately. I've really never used an agency, to be completely honest, and that has its benefits and its drawbacks as well. You use the internet and like it's open to pretty much anyone. I've hired some very good caregivers off of places like Facebook babysitting groups, local caregiver groups, things of that nature, and also just networking through my own network, knowing like people in nursing, people in special ed, people who do this kind of thing. But you certainly open yourself up to all types of people. I know I went to a wedding once, and it was in Dubuque, Iowa. So it was a bit of a drive. My caregiver brought me there, and towards the end of the night, I had to use the bathroom. So we go to the bathroom, and I guess they had left their phone and their like clutch purse on a table inside the banquet room, and we come back, and it's gone. Like, can't find it, nowhere to be found. She goes and grabs a worker, and they look around, still can't find it. And at this point, she storms off back to the hotel room and was like mad at me because I had used the bathroom. And I was like, okay, well, we're in Dubuque, Iowa, and you're the person here to help me. So I kind of need you here. So she goes back to the hotel room. I finally make it back there, and she makes me go to bed in my dress clothes from the wedding without like brushing my teeth, using the bathroom, doing any of that stuff. So like I hadn't like peed. I definitely, like, it was a wedding. I had been drinking a little bit. So I definitely had to pee. And I just remember the car ride back the next day was so awkward. And I never saw her again at that point. And honestly, I was thankful. I honestly, like, I don't remember her name either. Sometimes you just got to learn to move on from certain people.
I hope her phone was in her purse and she felt like a horrible human being afterwards.
Well, what happened was it was stolen. It was stolen by a worker, apparently. They found it like a week or two later, stuffed inside of a paper towel dispenser in a bathroom.
Spicy.
Yeah. And her ID and my ID were in her clutch because we had just taken my ID out and put it in there for, you know, the open bar. And yeah, it was a very odd thing, but I thought it was really weird that they blamed me for that just because I had used the bathroom.
You
and
know
they
what?
put it
Next
down
time,
on the table.
take your purse and your phone with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Ridiculous. I've worked with some very toxic people over the years, right?
Yeah.
I like I've worked with some toxic people over the years. More good people than bad people. However,
Agreed.
you remember the ones that are really toxic, though.
And sometimes it's just not a good personality match.
Yeah,
And
sometimes it is.
sometimes and sometimes people's circumstances change. And I also think some people, you know, they don't want to necessarily let you down, you know, like I know I've had to let caregivers go because all of a sudden they become unreliable and they can't show up. But at one point they were very reliable and very good. And I think people get stuck in this mindset sometimes of, oh, like he needs so much help, you know, I don't want to let him down. So I'm just going to come as much as I can, even if I'm calling off a lot. But what I don't think people realize is that calling off a lot last minute, especially, is even worse.
It makes it worse. Say it again, Kevin.
Yeah, it's even worse calling off last minute. Like, I'd rather someone tell me, and some of my caregivers do this, and I kind of make fun of them for it. You know, I'd rather have someone tell me 6 months in advance than tell me like the day of that they're unavailable. And I have taken measures to mitigate that. And what I mean by that is I try to have a lot of backup assistance, you know, play the strength in numbers game. And typically that has worked out pretty well for me. But like there are times where someone calls off last minute and it just happens to be a day where like everyone is unavailable. You know, you run into that. And that's a pretty bad feeling and a pretty rough place to be in. So, you know, sometimes you kind of have to make that decision for a caregiver, be like, hey, like this is no longer working out. Like you've done a great job. You were super reliable, but like now it's kind of changed. And I think it's best if we move on at this point.
Yeah, and that's the thing when you are now, through having to manage other people, become a supervisor or a leader, if you will, right? And it's something that you have to learn over time, because when you start doing this, you don't, like, most of us don't have great people skills at 17 and 18 years old. I mean, hell, some of us don't have great people skills at 35, 40 years old, right? However, when you work with people so intimately, you have to learn how to work with people and manage people, and it forces you to become a leader in certain ways, at least a manager at the bare minimum, right?
You have to learn to be empathetic to their needs.
Yes, of course. It's not just about you, right? It's about that other person as well. You know, I tell people all the time, if I could get up at 5 a.m. every day, I would be up at 5 o'clock every day. However, that means that the caregiver, especially if they don't live with me and my caregivers don't, they would have to be up at like 3 a.m. every day, right? And then like I would go to bed at like 8 or 9, right? And they go home at like 9 or 10, and then start all over again the next day up at 3. Like it's hard. It's hard. And so you have to make concessions within yourself to make sure it balances out for the person or people caring for you. And that's where like the leadership and the manager aspect of it come in, right? Because you have to manage people, and you have to, manage yourself, really, right? Get what you need. However, make sure you don't completely burn those folks out.
And it's also having to be the bad guy at times, which can be,
It's a challenge.
I kind of already mentioned it with, with people become unreliable, but yeah, it's definitely a challenge, mentally for us too, right? It's a burden. It's like, oh, like, this person isn't doing what I need them to do. It's stressful, It's debating, well, do I make a change or do I keep them? Or, what are the consequences if I do that? How do I go about it in the most like professional way possible, but in a way where I don't have a lapse in care? It's a balancing act. It really is.
And I will say this as part of that. Some of the best caregivers I've ever had are some of the most unbalanced people I have ever met. No lie. Like,
yeah,
no lie. And a lot of that has to do with their need to please, right? Like and in that they don't take care of themselves in many ways. However, they're great when they got to take care of you, right? And it's an interesting dichotomy. I just used a big word that
that is a big word. Wow.
You see when you work with people, when you work with caregivers, right? Some of my best caregivers are some of the most unbalanced people I have ever met in my life. And some of the most balanced people I met are great caregivers, but they don't last very long.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they're wonderful people. They got life together. They got it all figured out. They just don't stay around all that long.
Right.
Right. That's just my personal experience. You might have a caregiver if you're watching this episode right now, and they're wonderful, and they got their lives together, and they've been with you for a decade. And you know what? Good for you. Good for you. You think you're special? Well, you are, because I never had that. So, and so it's interesting, and so this is why, like, this is where personality comes in, right? Like, they might be a little unhinged, right? And it might drive you a little nuts. Now, do you get rid of them because they drive you a little nuts? No, you keep them because they're an amazing caregiver, right? Because they show up every day and they're reliable, and you know that they're going to be there for you. And so you just, it's okay. You're a little unhinged.
I would say that's the easiest way to hang on to a caregiving job, is just be reliable. Just show up.
We will love you forever if you're just reliable.
Literally, just show up and we will love you forever.
Forever. Like a dog eating out of a feed bag, right?
Eating out of the feed bag.
Yes. Yes. So I don't know. Again, thank you, caregivers. Thank you, caregivers. And so,
but I would agree with that. I think caregiving kind of lends it appeals to people who maybe want a more different type of job too, right? Who don't necessarily want to, sit behind a desk or whatever. So I think that's partially why too you get some different kinds of people, we'll say.
You do, and different kinds of people is a great way to put it, Kevin.
Different kinds of people. Yeah, exactly.
Different kinds of people.
Oh my goodness. They're amazing people.
No, not at all.
I've had some caregivers who are a little different, but like, they're amazing and I love them dearly. And I'm not knocking it in the slightest. Caregiving appeals to different kinds of people, I would say.
It does, especially if you have a flexible life, right? You don't have anything going on, and you can just at the whim of the world, you can just do whatever you need to do, right? Which is awesome, because like I think about like personalities of caregivers, and I think about flexibility of caregivers. Like, for me, like, we talked about this in, I believe, episode 3, traveling. Like, I travel a lot, right? And so this is where like personality comes in too, right? Because you're traveling with somebody, right? You're traveling with somebody. And so, like, if you get along with that caregiver, you're going to really know them once you get on an airplane together, or get in a car together and go somewhere. Like that girl who left you in Dubuque, Iowa. I don't even know where Dubuque. If you're watching from Dubuque, please, in the comments, let us know where it is. I could look it up, but I don't care that much.
I actually have family from there, amazingly.
So you know where it is. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, I know where it is, but that's okay. I'm from the Midwest.
That moment really showed you that person at in like one of their worst moments, right? I hope you're watching this, by the way. You shouldn't have left.
And I think the funny thing is, I won't say what their profession is, but they deal with people with disabilities on a daily basis.
You still know what this person's doing these days.
I know what they're doing. Yeah. I mean, Google's a
Ah,
powerful tool. Sometimes you got to look them up, you know.
whoa.
Maybe I do. Maybe I do remember their name. Um,
Whoa.
but you know, I mean, when I look at that, it's like, wow. Okay, well,
Maybe you taught
whatever.
this person a very valuable lesson.
Maybe I
Maybe.
did.
I hope you're a better person now. If you want to really know somebody, travel with them.
That's
I
so true.
I've had some really good travel partners, and I've had some really horrible travel partners.
Yeah.
There was one caregiver, and she was helping me, and we were cool. We were getting along well. Like we were great. And then I took her to a power soccer tournament a couple of years ago, and the trip started out fine, ended in disaster. I never saw her again after that trip.
Oh God,
I
what
like
happened?
I personalities clashed. I may have said something that upset her. There was a reason I said it. I don't even remember what it was now. She may have done something that upset me, and I said something, and that
Mm,
upset her, and the rest of the trip was awkward. Just like you, except for she didn't leave me in a hotel or leave me or in my dress clothes. She didn't do that. She helped me. We got through it. That plane ride home was very quiet though. And then I
yeah.
never saw her again. That was it.
She,
That was it. Um, and she's not necessarily a bad person. It's just like we're
yeah.
gonna make it work. And then I've had other caregivers who are awesome to travel with. I love traveling with these people
Yeah.
because they are up for anything and they're ready to go. And so it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting thing.
Those are the kinds of people you really got to look for. Are the people
Yes,
who are just like, okay, yeah, let's do it. I'm
let's
down.
do it. Let's go. Right.
Yeah.
Those folks right there. Those are the real ones right there. You all are the best. Y'all are the best. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's just so much. I mean, there's so many things we could talk about with caregivers. So many things.
And I think you brought up a good point. Like, we always have to be like, quote unquote, like on, right? We always have to be
Yes.
like professional. We always have to be like thinking about their needs and thinking about, what's coming next and what we have to prepare them for. And especially with traveling, it's a lot to manage. And sometimes things go wrong, especially in traveling, and
Oh
they're
yeah.
completely out of our control. You know, I do think it's easy sometimes for people to assign blame for things that like aren't necessarily in our control.
Sure, of course.
And it's like, hey, like I can't help that like this Uber driver is driving very slow or isn't paying attention to their GPS or whatever it is. So there is a lot of that like pressure to make sure that like things go right, because like as you kind of alluded to with your story, like you say one wrong thing or one thing goes horribly wrong, and you never see the person again,
Never
right?
see them again. Maybe
Right.
still in that city while you're there and they just leave. I don't know. So man, the caregiver, um, the caregiver dynamic is so interesting. It is one of the ultimate people skill scenarios,
It's a
right?
great way to get to know people,
It is.
honestly.
It is
Like I
also
would
a
say
horrible
like
way to get to know people.
it is, yeah, for sure. But like I would say some of my most like rewarding relationships I've met through the people who have caregived for me. And yeah, I've met some people too who I was just like, okay. you
No,
know. I mean, it's like any job, right? They can't all be winners.
no, no, they can't. However, if you find that caregiver that is there for you when you need and is relatively like cool and calm and collected, bless you.
Thank you.
Keep that caregiver. Keep them as long as you can because those folks they're not even gold, they're Bitcoin at this point, right? The Bitcoin. They're so valuable.
I
Um,
mean, I had the same respite caregiver from the time I was 1 until I turned 18.
my
Every
goodness.
every other Saturday for
Wow.
17 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and shout out Jenny, she's the best.
Wow.
But I mean, that is like a unicorn. You do not find people who are available that consistently for that long. It just doesn't happen.
No, no, especially when you're me and you move around a lot. That's amazing. I can't even wrap my brain around that.
I guess I mean, I did have the benefit of living in the same general area my whole childhood. But yeah, I mean, when I think about that now, it's like, wow, 17 years every other Saturday. You know, I think about it now, and you know, all the people who helped me are great, but like, no one wants to work every weekend necessarily, or even, you know, like
or even every other weekend.
Well, sometimes you can find people who are willing to do every other weekend, but like, it can be tough, you know, like people want their weekends. People consider that their free time.
People want their holidays, right?
So to have exactly. So to have someone available every other week for 17 years, I mean, kudos to her.
Yeah, I mean, there's
honestly.
been some Christmases and Thanksgivings. Well, not Thanksgiving because that's on a Thursday, but there's been some Christmases with Jenny. I'm sure New Year's Days with Jenny, right?
Jenny.
Jenny. Hats off to you.
Yeah.
Hats off to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ginny, for sure. Is it short for Virginia?
No, I think it's just Jenny. Ginny.
It's just Jenny. Good for you.
Just Jenny.
Good.
Yeah.
Cool. Good. I love it. Good. Well, damn. You know what? We're gonna end it on a good note. We're gonna end it on Jenny.
There
today.
we go.
There you
That's
go.
Perfect.
This is volume 1 of the Caregiver Chronicles. We haven't gotten to all the nightmare stories. We'll get to that one of these days. Maybe that's a Halloween special. Caregiver Nightmares. Volume 2. Dun dun dun. So yeah, okay, cool. We're gonna leave it right there today. We're gonna end it with Jenny on a good note. This has been episode 5 of the Long Way Around podcast. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube, like this video, follow us on Facebook and Instagram, TLWA Podcast on both of those platforms. Here we're on TLWA Podcast as well, I believe. I don't even know. Is that right? TLWA Podcast on YouTube? Yes. Follow us. Of course, if you're here already watching, you already knew that because you're here watching.
So make sure to click that subscribe button.
Yes. Click the subscribe button.
And send it to your friends and tell them to click the subscribe button.
Yes. And also, if you want to email us, longwayaroundpodcast@gmail.com.
Yes.
Right? Isn't that right? It's not the long way. It's just longwayaroundpodcast@gmail.com.
Correct.
Right? Longwayaroundpodcast@gmail.com.
We would love to hear from you.
We would love to hear from you. Email us. Shower us with affection and other things like that. Anyway, on that note, Kevin Sullivan,
Tony Jackson,
it's been real.
This has been episode 5.
It has been episode 5. And episode 6, we're talking about other things. I don't remember. That's okay. You should just come back. We should just come back. Come back for episode 6. It'll be great. I promise. We'll see you next time. Bye.
See ya.